We are going to get started in about 5-7 minutes.
Go in there, dude. Anything. Yep. Dude, right. Baby Mitchell.
Martin, that's right. Yeah. Yep. Taking that many. You're done. Okay? You're done. Okay? No problem. I'll bring you another one. Yeah.
That's his twin.
That's when it is. I'll be here for a while.
Well, you can, I guess you can put it on the side there.
Is that thing recording?
I don't, I guess it is, I don't know. Just put it on the side there. And then okay, take it.
That's why
Hi, Josh. How are you? I'm good. Can you tilt that a little bit?
I don't like.
It's not gonna be
It's not going to be
perfect.
perfect. I don't think. It doesn't look straight, but I don't think that matters.
Okay. I just wonder if this turns a little.
It does, but
Yeah. No, that's better than it was.
oh, you have one person watching.
Where do I see this at?
All right, I can sit down.
Hi.
Make sure everything's good now. You're gonna be pictures up there? You know what?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, thanks for coming. Okay, we're gonna get started here in a minute, so if you want to take a seat.
Sit down on your phone.
Say, look it.
You guys gotta behave now, I'm behind you.
Dad, is that like get some off? It's gonna be dark soon.
Shut those lights off. Yeah, that's good, thanks. Okay, yeah, got a nice turnout here. Thanks everybody for coming out. I've had quite a few people just the last couple months wondering about this the combine tour that I did back in 2007. So I figured, oh, I'll just do another presentation, and yeah, I had. Actually, I talked to the people that I work for. Their son, he messaged me last night. He's like, "Are you going to put this online or something?" He's like, "I want to see that and show them too." And then some guys from Michigan they really wanted to see it. So we got it on Facebook Live here. So I don't know how good it's going to work. Hopefully they can see something and get something out of it. So I guess I'll start at the beginning of the story. When I was real young, I heard about these younger guys, and they would go out west and go harvest the wheat crop from Texas to Alberta. And I thought, oh, that's something I'd really like to do. And yeah, you heard of a couple people locally that would do it. And then I saw a movie. It was called The 2,000 Mile Harvest. Has anybody ever seen that movie? One guy at the back there, Uncle John. It was a movie that followed a combine crew from, it was done in '97, and it followed the crew from Texas up to Alberta for a summer. And it's only an hour-long video, but I watched that, and that was when I was in my early teens, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to go with that crew. So that crew was S&L Farms out of Imperial, Nebraska. So I did my research, and I had dial-up internet and looked them up online and found a phone number, and I called them and I talked to Scott and told them I wanted to do it and that I was a Canadian, and that was no problem. So they got me in touch with, it's called Communicating for Agriculture. It's in Minnesota, and they specialize in getting foreign students into the U.S., like get them work permits to go over there and do agricultural exchanges, they call it. So there was a lot of paperwork, and then that was the time they changed the law where you needed a passport to get into the States. So applied for the passport, and it took months and months, and it finally showed up, I think in April, and just in time for me to leave in May. So I got all the paperwork done and everything, and went to Mom and Dad, dropped me off at Detroit Airport, and I flew to Denver and had a 3-hour layover there, or just had to sit there, wait for my shuttle, and I got on a shuttle, and it was a 3-hour drive to Imperial. So they drop you off at the quick stop in Imperial at 9 o'clock at night, and not many people there, and they said, oh, make sure you got a quarter with you so you can call with the payphone and call them to come pick you up. So I called, and Linda come pick me up and drop me off at the trailers, and everybody was gone for supper somewhere. There was nobody there, and it was almost 10 o'clock. I just went to bed. Like, I got there, nobody was there. So yeah, finally everybody came rolling in, and yeah, that's when I met everybody. And I was it was May the 7th, 2007 when I went out there. If you got any questions through the presentation, just stick your hand up, or if you want to wait until the end and ask questions, that's fine. Whatever works for you. So I got about 150 pictures in this slideshow, so I'll try and explain stuff about everyone. So these are the stops that we made. Down Monday, Texas was where we started. There's mainly there's only a couple guys there that we combined for, but yeah, big operators. And you'll see some of them, they have soybeans and corn, and there's safflower. We actually combined in those places up into Alberta, and then when we headed back towards Nebraska for the fall, we stopped and we cut safflower in Montana, and then we went back to Imperial and switched the combines over for corn and soybeans, and then we went down into Tribune, Isabel, and Medicine Lodge, Kansas, and we did corn and soybeans there, and then we went back into Nebraska around home and finished up with corn harvest there. So this is at the Scott and Linda's home farm. There is, you'll notice some of these trucks, they say South Fork harvesters on them. It was S&L Farms, and then a fellow that had worked for them in the past, he had, I guess, took over some of the business, and he started his own company, South Fork Harvesters. And so they were kind of running the two crews out of this place here. 2001, I got a thing I'll read you afterwards, but Scott was involved in a really bad accident, and he was in the hospital for 6.5 months. And if I'm correct, the guy that started South Fork, he was one of the guys that was there at that time, or he had worked for him the year before. And there was a bunch of guys that went back a second year and ran that crew for him, because he was in the hospital for 6.5 months due to that accident. So this was 2007 that was in 01, and 2007 was the first year that Scott and Linda went back on the road and actually ran combines under the S&L name. I shouldn't say that, not under the S&L name, but that was the first time that they were actually back on the road with the crew since the accident. So it was kind of a cool thing for them and for me, of course. So yeah, this is those trailers. That's all they did. They just hauled the tractors and the grain carts, and usually what they would do is if they hauled they'd haul that stuff to wherever we were combining, and then drop it all and come back and either hook on. I forget. Jeremy, do you know if they hauled combines on them trailers or?
No, they never did on those. They were always the special combine trailers. They'll never pull the carts on those.
Okay, so like they would drop that drop everything and then bobtail back. And they called it shagging. You would shag down and shag back. It was just a thing that was the saying for it.
We still have the same trailers you guys have.
Okay.
But they modified the necks to get the feeder house up forward.
Okay.
Weight on the tractor better.
Okay. So yeah, they did a lot of bobtailing, because you'd have to move everything from Nebraska to Texas, and then you bobtail back, and then you haul more stuff, and then you just kept doing that back and forth all the way up. there's there's one of the combine haulers. That's Haas. He was from Hoopston, Illinois. I kind of lost contact with him, but he was a really good guy to have on the crew. Just down to earth guy. And they'd hook the grain trailers on behind the combine trailer and haul it as one to get down there. These were we had in the separation between S&L and South Fork. This was our crew. We had the 2 tandems and with pups, and then we had those pintle hitch combine trailers, and we got those hooks on the front, and that was for lifting duals if we had to. And if I remember right, back in the day when they would have the tandem trucks, like older combines with smaller headers, they would just slide the header in they'd lift the header up with that hook on the feeder house and then back the truck up, put the head in the truck, and then that's how they hauled the head around. But those hooks were handy for lifting anything up you had to lift. Everybody really likes this service truck. This is an old S2. It's an 83 top kick, 3208 cat engine. Scott custom built that truck. He wanted a way to get more guys to the field with less vehicles, and so he took a cab from an old one of those 3+3 Chevy pickups, and he modified everything to make it fit. And yeah, that was our service truck. It had a 5-speed transmission, 2-speed rear end, so that yeah, it was quite the experience driving that thing. Then this header, I even got a laser pointer. I really don't need it, but we're going to use it. This header trailer here, it would notice those are 2 36-foot heads on there, and you'd hook the combine up to the front. There's a hydraulic lock. You'd hook it right up to your combine, use your real 4.5 button on the combine, and it would fold that trailer down, and you go and put the heads on. There's just lips on there, and the head would hook in there on each end, and then you hit your button on the combine and fold it up, and then you put you get a chain, attach it up in here underneath, and chain it to the frame, and that's how we hauled the headers around. So this is in Monday, Texas. This is called the Triangle. So this, where everything's parked there, that was like a big triangle of grass, and it was kind of a central meeting point, I guess. And if we were close by, everything would get parked there, and then we could, you could run the service truck up behind and fuel everything up, and all the trucks could park there. And there's one thing about Scott. He was very, very professional. Everything had to look right. Everything had to be right. And whenever we parked, everything had to be perfectly straight and lined up and look professional. So if we parked somewhere there, and depending on where we were, there's different ways you parked, and that's how you do it. And you never left your head up. You always put your head down, and same space between everything, and that's how it was. And you expected that of everybody, and if they didn't do it, you would get told this is what we're doing. So that's the combine lineup, and there was seven 9760 John Deeres. We ran 2 under S&L, and then South Fork was running 5, and then we got the 9220s with the Avalanche carts. And we were running a 4850 actually with a Kinsey buggy. It'll be coming up. So there's all the I think that's most of the trucks that we had, and they're all lined up. Like I said, that was not staged for a picture. That was how you parked. So and everything's always polished up. Everybody had a can of polish and rags in the truck, and if you were sitting waiting to get loaded, you were polishing. And there was a I got to Nebraska. I had like the next day after I got there, I had to have a meeting with Scott. So I go to the office. He's like, okay. And I had rode a lot in combines. I never really ran one. I got my truck license. At that time in Ontario, you could get it with a 3/4 ton truck and a gooseneck trailer. So that's what I did. And the only semi that I drove before I went out there, my uncle bought a brand new International in London. And we went there, and the salesman says, "You got your A license?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Here's the key, take it for a spin." I couldn't get it out of second gear. So I go there, and I said to Scott, I said, that's the story I told him. I said, "I've never really driven truck." I says, "I got to learn." He's like, "What about tractor and combine?" I said, "Well, I've driven tractor." I said, "I've rode in a lot of combines, but I've never really had to drive one too far, or at least just on the road." He's like, "Okay." He says, "You'll be a number 2 combine." He's like, "Some people ain't gonna like it, but he says, we do trucking and grain cart and combine, and everything's got to be done." And he's like, "You're in the combine." So, and everybody wants to be in a combine, but sometimes it depends on what you have for a license and your ability, and they put you where they need you.
Mitch,
So,
how old were you when you were doing this?
I was 18 when I went out there. I turned 19 there shortly after, yeah.
Okay, all right.
So there's my combine, number 2. Everybody always, they got a kick out of my, might be a better picture of that flag, but it was half Canadian, half American flag. I had it on there. So here's, this is when we were in Texas, and it was so wet there. I left May the 7th to go down there, and I got a book here that I wrote in it, and I'll have to look at it after. But I got there May the 7th, and I think it was like the 14th of May. Part of the crew went, like the South Fork portion of the crew went down there, and they didn't cut a single acre. And we got down there the end of May, and we had to wait a little while. It was so wet, and that's like, that's some, I don't know how much tile, I don't think they had much tile there, and that is like walking through a whole bunch of dog crap right there. It's real sticky stuff. It was not good. You just keep going, lift the head up and shove the hydrostat ahead, and wherever you stop, hopefully you get out. If not, then the grain cart would come with the big bungee cord to pull you out. There's S2 going, this was in Oklahoma. We had just turned, and I don't know, that's just really cool to me right there, all that smoke coming out of there. It was a real nice rig, and that truck is actually in Alberta right now. Big farmer in Alberta bought it from Scott, so it's in Canada. So here's how we would, if we were staying in the field where we were combining, then this is how we would park, and then you could run the service trucks right up the middle. And then if you needed grease, like we were in charge of our own combine, so keeping the windows clean, any servicing, maintenance, we were in charge of that. So usually we would grease it in the morning when we got there because there was too much dew, so we couldn't cut right away. But we'd get there first thing. Oh, we always fueled up at night. They had the trucks there. We'd fuel up and then go into town, fuel the trucks up so you could cut we cut until the dew came in. So whether the dew come in at 10 or come in at 2, we'd cut till 2 in the morning. You fuel up, refuel, get to the camper, get a couple hours sleep, and then you're back there again, get greased up, and wait for the dew to burn off to start cutting again. But yeah, this was how we always parked in a field to make it efficient for fueling. You could just pull up, fuel one, then the other pull up, or if you had 2 service trucks, you can get one on one side and one in the middle, just to make things flow evenly and get things done in a timely manner. This was a feed lot in Oklahoma, and it had to be, it could have been a mile wide, I forget. It was huge. We just kept driving. It was just pen after pen after pen. They got their own feed mill and everything. It was quite something to see. There, that's just pens of cattle. And then right up at the road in the corner, kind of where we turned, like that was like the lowest spot, and that's where all the pens drained to. Like if that was here, oh man, the MOE would hang you. This was in Hardin, Montana. It's called the Nesson Ranch. When you get combining out there, it's all old like cowboy camps, and the like hundreds of years ago, they would have had cattle all over here, and they'd keep moving them to different parts. And there was some of the shops we went in. There's old maps where all the old territories were and who owned what farm and everything. And it was, yeah, some of it was quite hilly. But yeah, there was here we are cutting. There's Newfeld harvesting out of Inman, Kansas, and these red combines. Those were Larson harvesting, and they're out of Kansas as well. And it was just a big job, and they were yeah, they came to, we all worked together. We used everybody's grain cart. You just keep going. They had their trucks, and no, it was a fun time with them guys, and with all the different, like the red and the green combines. I didn't pick this crew just because I just wanted to go on the harvest crew, and it happened they had John Deere. If they had red, then I would have ran red. But it's more for the experience. It doesn't really matter on what equipment they're running. It's for the experience, that's for sure. Yeah, you can see that's Montana. It's a nice mountain ranges there. Montana's a real beautiful state when you get down into the deeps of it. It's there's spots there you didn't think would ever exist. We were in Miles City, and there is a difference between a farmer and a rancher. And the one guy was a rancher, and he thought he had almost 1,000 acres of mountain range, and he thought he'd plant spring wheat. So he planted it, and then we went to go cut it. We get off the main highway and go. There's a road. Go down that road. It's 40 miles. It's a 40-mile dirt road, rocks all over, and he lives on that road at the end. There was nobody else on that road, and it wound around and everything. And we were combining there, and there was you'd be going up a hill, and the combine would spin out on rocks. So you had to back up and go to a different spot. Like it was not nice territory. And there was a cow and a calf that got out on him. He couldn't catch them, and we chased them the whole way. We started at this end, and we combined the whole mountain range. And finally, they got into the last pasture. And then there's another spot there. We went down through a creek, and there's a roadway that would go up. And next thing, we're going up, up, up. Next thing you know, we're cutting wheat. We're probably 200 feet above everything else we cut. And you're just right on the edge cutting there, looking down. And I tried finding, I probably got 3,000 pictures, and I looked through them all, and I can't find pictures for some reason. So I don't know if I lost them or if I missed them, but it was real nice scenery there in Montana. Here's most of the time we'd use our own trucks. This is that's one of Larson's trucks right there. This one, that's a Montana setup with that pup like that. So they would hire guys they'd hire extra truckers if they needed them, if the trucks couldn't keep up. Like when we were running at that Miles City location, when we're 40 miles deep in the backwoods, that was a 300-mile round trip to bring a load of wheat away. And it was yielding 25 or 30 bushel spring wheat. So it took forever to load a truck, but then it took forever. We did a lot of sleeping because you'd fill the combine, fill the grain carts, you got no trucks because they're all gone. And you just wait for a truck to show up, and then everybody unloads, and then do it all over again. It was interesting. And we didn't happen to us, but there was harvest crews. When everybody gets going crazy, there's trucks everywhere, and there would just be trucks pulling up, and they'd get loaded, and then they're gone. And that was a big problem because it wasn't hired by anybody, right? So they were just, here's a field where we're harvesting, and the trucks would pull up and get a load of wheat, and then they take off, eh? But when I got a thing here, but this is a field ticket and a sheet that the grain cart driver would have, and every truck got a ticket with the field name, farmer, and everything. And that's how they kept track of all the loads, and they had to know who was supposed to be trucking and who wasn't, because you because there was loads of wheat getting stolen from guys. We never had it happen to us, but that was happening. So this was in around Hardin, Montana as well. This was called the Scott Ranch, and yeah, that's like there'd just be random fields wherever in there. But it had rained quite a bit. And that's as far as that truck could get, and it was stuck. They had to wait for it to dry up. But you get going in there, and you like how you don't get lost in there. Like and they go by names, like, oh, there's Old Disc Corner, but that disc was scrapped 30 years ago, right? But you got to know where Old Disc Corner is. And then there's Dead Man's Hill, because there's an old fuel truck that crashed in the 50s and burnt up. And the truck is still sitting there. And that's Dead Man's Hill, because the guy burnt in that truck in the 50s, right? He was delivering fuel to this ranch. And there's landmarks like that. Well, you know where Old Disc Corner is. No, well, the old disc that was there 30 years ago. Yeah, okay, right. That's what it was like. Here's some more Kansas scenery. There's spots that would come up like this here, and it'd be like a grass waterway. They call it coulees. That's what they call them out here, is coulees. See this guy here? Look what he forgot. Right there, left his ladder up. Uh-oh, or his railing. That ain't good. We're in Montana, and this was we had campers that we lived in, and we'd go to different campgrounds. Real nice places. There'd be other harvesters there, and I just thought this 359 Pete service truck was pretty cool. And that I might, figured someday I might have one, but we'll see. These guys here, I don't know if I took a picture of it, but on the door, this was this guy's great-grandfather, and there's about 30 mules pulling a combine in that picture. That's a picture of they were harvesting for over 100 years. And I talked to the guy. I think it was Barnes Harvesting. I think they're out of California. But they're real cool guys to talk to. So here we are breaking open a field. This looks like it could be Kansas or Oklahoma. Yeah, the grain cart guys, they would just keep watch, and they would just keep running around and keep everybody going. And when we'd open up the first little part, you would you don't get the whole field opened up, but everybody would go around, and then you'd never take the head. Like once you got the first couple rounds, if I remember right, you do the first couple of full rounds, and then you just keep turning with your head in the wheat. And then at the end of the field, you got triangles, and you keep working away. And then when you're just about done, one combine to take so the triangles would go out in the corner to the edge of the field, and then you'd combine. You take half of the triangle to the edge of the field. You turn around, you take the other half back, and all the combines meet back right in the middle. So you'd never lift your head up, not very often. As long as you're cutting, going around and around, you keep the head in the wheat the whole time. And you kind of see how nice that is, like how nice that field is cut. That whole field. This goes back to Scott being very professional and liking things a certain way. That whole field, that straw better be even across the whole field. And if you break a section and you're flagging, you turn out and you fix the section, and then you go and cut off where you were flagging, and you fall in behind the rest of the combines. If it was flagging, you didn't fix it. There's a guy, the guy that was running South Fork. He had a 4-wheeler, and he would run beside the combines and make sure everything's going good. And he'd be on the radio, Mitch, drop her an inch. You do this, do that. Hey, you're flagging. He was running with his 4-wheeler checking. But that field had to be tabletop cut. Now you're going to get into spots where the fields are uneven and it's going to dip down. You'll get that, but a lot of these fields are fairly level, and there was no wheat standing when we were done. But it had to be. If we flagged one, and you missed it with the edge of the header, you pulled out and you went back and cut it. It wasn't the guy behind you wasn't cutting it off. We had to go out and cut it off because that field had to be perfect.
I'm glad he doesn't see my field.
Then we had it in, I forget if we were in Texas or Montana, but we got cutting wheat, and this field it could have been 1,200 acre piece, and it went all around every which way. And yeah, I got stuck with the last little piece that was going that way, and I combined, and all of a sudden I'm out of wheat, and I turn around and I cannot see anything. No lights, no nothing. So I shut the combine off, and I stand on the roof and I listen, and it was pure silence. And there's 6 other combines, 3 grain carts, and trucks somewhere, and I had no idea where I was. And it's dark. I was turning like this. I had no sense of direction, and I called them on the radio, and I said, "Yep, I'm lost. You have to come find me." So I'll turn all my lights on, all my flashers. Yep. A little while later, the 4-wheeler shows up, and I followed him back, but I never would have got back to the other combines. That's how big those fields are out there. So this was in Kansas when we were doing corn harvest, and from what I remember, that was a pretty big storm that came in. But yeah, it made for a nice picture. So this was in Syracuse, Kansas. I think it was a Sunshine elevator. The guy that we cut for, he had a couple trucks, and he would let us use them. And we were doing. This was when I think we were doing corn. So we had one combine running in corn, and then we had filled trying to get rid of the corn was a problem because the coal companies had all the train, like all the locomotives tied up for coal, and they could not move grain, and the corn was wet. And the elevators had to store wet. Those elevators in Kansas and there, they do not know what wet corn is. So now it's wet corn, and feedlots only take so much. And now we got to take it to elevators, and they can only take so much because they got dryers that they haven't had running in years, and it was a big problem. So we just went to all these different elevators wherever we could haul corn. Well, somehow this was an 05 truck. And the farmer said, "Here, you guys can use it." So that's pretty much what I learned to drive truck in. And as you can see, those elevators, they're kind of made for like single axle grain trucks. And I pulled through there. I'm like, there's no way I can fit. Well, there wasn't hardly any room to get through there. And right there's a little lip. And the front tire of that truck, when it hit that lip, those mitered stacks, they went like this on that doorway. If you would have popped the clutch, you would have ripped them stacks off of there. And I was like, that little Mexican is there waving you, trying to get you lined up for the pit. And it's like, oh man, this kid he ain't looking at the doorway, he's looking at the pit. I'm like, what about my stacks? Oh yeah, you're good. No. So it was interesting. What's that?
Would you pack out?
Well, I could pull through no problem. But I did there was another elevator we went to, and I don't think I'll tell you that story when I get to that picture. There's that truck and trailer. And we'd load, like those things, you're only good for 80,000 pounds gross, and we were loading them to like 100 to 110. Like we'd get a big load on that little trailer. This was in Leota, Kansas, at the ADM. Back to the corn problem. There was lots of corn and not enough storage and no trains to get rid of it, so they just start ground piling. They ain't scared to do it. They got all the stuff there to do it, all the pipes to put in the ground and everything. So we'd dump at this pile, and then they had there's an elevator across the road, and the dump pit was about twice as long as that truck. And I pulled up, and there's another truck there, and it was same style Peterbilt, but it had a real long wheelbase, and he went up the ramp to get in that elevator, and he buckled his fuel tanks in. right in the middle, because he bottomed out going on the ramp. It was too low. So he was backing out of there, and he went to go somewhere else. He was not very happy. So then I had to go over there, and I get in there, and there's all water pipes, and like, it was the same thing, narrow. And get in there with the truck, and there's all these air pipes and water pipes hanging down. Well, you got 2 feet on each side of the truck, and you had to steer through it so the stacks would miss certain pipes. And then I get to the other side, and the doorway is lower than the one I went in. Foot lower, I couldn't get out. So I had to back out. And then I had to go around and got to back in. Well, then there's a hydro pole 4 feet in the doorway, about 20 feet out. So you had to back around the... Good thing. But it was, and this was like the first time, I did not, when I first drove truck, we went down to Texas. We had to bring the trailers, the grain trailers down there. And it was from Imperial to Monday, Texas, was 12 hours. We had to do that in a round trip. 12 down, drop, turn around, 12 back, no stopping. And so yeah, we're going to Texas, and I'm passenger. My eyes are like this. I'm like, oh, this is great. Look at all these oil rigs and cattle and everything. So I did not sleep going down there. And then I got to drive coming back. Oh, I was so tired, and I could not shift. And my buddy's sitting beside me, and he's like, rev it up a little. He grabbed the shifter, I'd rev it up, and he'd shift it for me. And we got going, and then we come up to Liberal, Kansas, and there's a cattle pot. Went on the off-ramp on the highway, because there's a kill plant there. Cattle pot rolled. Come up, all these cattle on the road. So I had to hit the brakes, and there's all these cops, so I was nervous. You think I could get that thing in gear? No way, so he's shifting for me again. And then I never really drove much truck, other than the service truck a little bit, and then I got to haul corn with this thing, 18 speed. And then I got to do all this backing up my first trip into town. I learned really quick. There's one of our tandem trucks dumping there. So they would take I don't know why, they would dump the pup at the belt and then dump the dump box there for some reason. Maybe because of the tongue of the pup and it was only a center door. That's probably why they couldn't dump in the belt, but that's what they did. You can see it's pretty big pile of corn there. There's that's the tractor and the grain cart that we had for our little crew. Like we went off as a two combine crew after like certain times. If there was some smaller jobs to do, then that's what we would do, and then we took this with us. And yeah, a lot of people grind my gears about the Vision Guard cab on these things and all that, but I really love that tractor. And someday I probably wouldn't mind having one again. A 2-wheel drive 4850, power shift. And if I remember right, it was either the first year or the last year made. I forget. It was either an 83 or 88. I think it was an 83, first year built, but I can't remember. So this was in Tribune, Kansas. Yeah, elevator was full. We had a time where we didn't combine because they had to figure out what they were going to do with the corn, and like that didn't take very long to get that pile there. So the elevator was full, so we just sat there. We didn't do any combining because there's nowhere for the crop to go. So this is an interesting story. We were sitting because we couldn't combine, so we go into Tribune to go look around. We go to the grocery store, get a chocolate milk, and actually we're in a antique shop first and looking around, and they had a manual for a Farm All M. I thought, oh, I got one of them, so I bought it. And the lady's like, you like old tractors? I'm like, yeah, we got Farm Alls at home, and I got this book. It was like $10, so I got it. Oh, okay. So she's like, you want to see more like old tractors? I was like, sure, we're not doing nothing. She's like, okay, I'll see what's going on. Stop in here when you leave town. So we go to the grocery store, get a chocolate milk. We're sitting on the bench out front, and drinking our chocolate milk. All of a sudden, the owner of the grocery store comes out. He's like, "You guys have to go back to the antique store right now." Oh, okay. So the lady looked out down the street, saw we were sitting there, called the grocery store, told the guy, "Tell them 3 harvesters on the bench to get back here to the antique store." Okay, so we did. We get there. She's like, "Get in my Hummer." She had this little H3 Hummer or whatever. She's like, "I gotta take you somewhere." Okay. So she had called. This guy's name was Galen Wilcox, and he was in his 70s, and he was the hired man for a lady that farmed outside of Tribune, and she was 90. And so this lady dropped us off we walked to the store and got in this lady's Hummer, and she dropped us off at the old John Deere dealer in Tribune. We walk in there, and it's just like they turned the key. Everything was still in that dealership. There was parts on the shelf, all the books, and yeah, it was pretty cool to see. And then this old boy was there, and he showed us. I don't think I got pictures of inside the dealer in the shop. It's in my book that you can look at after, but they had a big Minneapolis steam engine. They had 2 820 John Deere tractors that were consecutive serial numbers. He had all these rare tractors, all these antique tractors, and it was Marjorie Hornbaker was the lady's name that farmed, and her husband had bought the old John Deere dealer and filled it with antique tractors, and that's where he worked on them. And yeah, this guy was kind of he was the groundskeeper, and they farmed. She farmed 5,000 acres, her and Galen here, but they summer fallowed half of it every year. So they do 2,500 this year, 2,500 next year. And they had 2 cat track tractors, like brand new Kinsey planter, and that's what those 2 farmed it. And that lady was 90 years old, and her everyday driver was a 78 250 Ford, 4-wheel drive. And he made her get a newer half-ton automatic because she broke her leg and she couldn't hit the clutch. She couldn't shift it. And she was so mad at him because he said she couldn't drive anywhere because she couldn't hit the clutch. Then that old 78 Ford, but that was that 90 years old and everyday driver, 78 Ford stick shift. But anyways, we toured around the old John Deere dealer, and he's like, "Oh, you guys got time?" "Yeah." And we drove by this place in the combines, and I saw rows and rows of old equipment. I thought, man, I want to go in there sometime, but yeah, we were so busy. And then this guy, I said, "I know right where we're going." We drove by here the other day. So he took us in there, and oh man, the stuff that they had in there. He had these old combines, and they were either Holt or Caterpillar, like the old pull-type combines that you pull with horses. Caterpillar combines, like real rare stuff, and it was all in there. Whether it's still there today, I'm not sure, but man, it was a place of treasures. There's an old grain auger that he had. This is a tractor that they had. I think it was like an AR or something, John Deere, or a D, I forget. But there's tires. There's like 3 or 4 tires in there. There's no air in them. This tractor was from the Amish. You know why they do that? Like why they put tires inside of tires? Anybody know? Somebody said something.
For shipping?
No.
You're not allowed to trap air.
Not allowed to trap air. Air's got to be. You have to breathe air. You can't trap it. So that's why they don't put air in these tires. It's all tires in tires on the back. Like, that's what they did. That's what he told us. So there's those really old Caterpillar or Holt combines there, like those things. And they're in real nice shape too. Not all rotted out. This was, we were going up through Wyoming, and I think it was I-25, something like that, and this was just, there'd be random places like this all up the highway, and all this stuff, man, I wanted to stop in there real bad, look at all that junk, but yeah, you're just driving by, but it was really cool stuff. This is South Fork service truck. Scott built that truck. He was pretty proud of that thing. fully equipped service truck, like fuel, air compressor, torches, welder, everything you need, and it was a really sweet truck. I never did get to drive it because it wasn't part of our crew, but I got to look at it all the time, so it was, yeah, it was a beauty. Here we are in Montana. It was we had quite the trip, because we were always there's ports of entry and stuff in Wyoming and Montana. I think it's mostly Wyoming, and it's kind of like a border crossing, but into the state. And you're supposed to stop in there and make sure you got permits and everything, and we just get in the left lane and get beside other trucks and go. Because we knew we weren't quite legal, but they finally caught us. And I was standing up here back by the fence because I was a Canadian, and I already had to run in with the Colorado DOT, and I didn't want them doing anything to me, so I stayed back here, and there's the DOT there. They pulled us over because we got sick of doing 2 trips everywhere, so we put pintle hitches on the back of the combine trailer, and then we could pull the trailers behind the combine trailer, so we could do it all in one trip.
How long, Mitch?
105 feet. So we didn't have a permit for being that long. And here, I don't know if you can do that. 2 pintle hitches, I don't know if you can do that. But we did it there, and they give us a ticket and paid the ticket, give us a sticker. But yeah, Wyoming and Montana, you got to be 21 to have your CDL in the States, and there is a harvest exemption, so if you're 18, you can drive, but as long as it's for the harvest. And we sent 2 guys. One was over that age, and one was still like 18 or 19. Sent them up into Wyoming. Well, there's big hills in Wyoming, and you can go as fast as that truck will go. And they are coming down the hill, and they caught him speeding, and then they got looking into him. Oh, you're not old enough to be driving a truck. Well, we're in Colorado, so the foreman and I had to drive all through the night up into Wyoming just to get the truck from the scale. They would not let them take that truck. You needed a old enough licensed driver to get the truck. So a lot of places we went, they had these cattle guards on the road there, so the cows couldn't. Because chances are they'd run cattle down here. Then, I don't know if I got another, yeah, I got a picture of it somewhere, but this is going to Alberta, and this is the border crossing at Del Bonita. So there's American Customs there, and here's Canada Customs. So we had to get everything all cleaned up, pull up here, and we could park. There's a big parking lot kind of opens up when you get up there. They're a lot friendlier here than in Detroit or Port Huron. This was at a farm we parked at it was like half a mile from the border crossing. They knew who the farmer was, and we would just get everything all right there, check everything over, make sure it's good to cross the border. When we go to the border right here, they'd come and look at your license and check all the serial numbers on the equipment so they know what's coming into Canada, make sure everything's clean. And then we're going to like Cardston, Fort McLeod, so it was only like half an hour up there from the border. And we said, well, we got more stuff we got to get. Oh yeah, no problem. We'll be here when we get back. And then yeah, you get to the U.S. side. Oh, we saw you guys over there. Oh, we just gotta check this just to check you out. But we know what you were doing over there on the Canadian side. And have a good day and this and that. And then when we had to go to Sweetgrass, which is that's Detroit Windsor border crossing in the middle of nowhere. That's what Sweetgrass is. Big building for border crossing. And we had to get, I was okay because I was Canadian, but the Americans had to get their work permit to go in. So pull up in the parking lot, go in the office. So you got Canadian here, American here. They're working at the same desk. They're lined up. the Americans on the crew, they got their paperwork that they needed for a work permit. And they're like, oh, what about you? I said, no, I'm Canadian. Oh, welcome home, they said. So we get all the paperwork, and they're like, okay, just do a loop, and then you can head back in and bring your equipment, or go get your equipment and do what you gotta do. So we loop around. They got this U laneway, so we loop around, get to the American side, and that guy acted like he never even seen us. And he was right at that desk when we were inside. So everybody shows their paperwork. All the Americans were good. Then they get to me. So he's like, and I was on a J1 training visa, they called it. So it's not a work visa. So I was trained. I was a trainee. They were training me on how to run combine, how to drive a truck, that kind of stuff. It was not work. It was nothing to do with work. It was training. And that was a very important piece. So the guy was, oh, how long you been working for S&L Farms? I've been training with them for like 3 months or 4 months. How long you been working in the U.S.? Oh, I've been training for a few months. How much longer are you going to be working with these guys? Oh, I'll be training with them till November. And he held us there for 10 minutes, and he kept trying to nail me on work. And I just kept going back with training, and he finally figured out that I had him, and then he let us go. But if I would have said work, he could have made me sit right there, and I would probably not have been allowed back in if I would have given the wrong answer. But kind of, yeah, he seen us right there at the counter when we were in there, and he, oh, hey guys, and then we get there, he didn't know us. So here's one of we cross bridges like this all the time. Usually, if we could get around without taking the head off, we barely took the head off. Like when we were in Kansas, we'd be combining over here, and then they had white wheat. Oh, white wheat's ready, and we got to go 40 miles. So everybody get on the road, and you go 40 miles. 7 combines, 40 miles with 36-foot heads. We do it. Same in Alberta. Nice wide open. Drive with your heads on. Somebody comes up, you drive in the ditch, and they drive under your head. We didn't have tilt feeder house or anything on these things. Like these aren't flex drapers. These were some of the first drapers deer come out with. They're rigid. But we go over bridges, and then if you get on a back road and there's a little bridge, you just nudge up to the signs with the head, and they fall down. And the last guy who comes through, he'd go pick it up, and they'd have real long nails in them, and you just shove them back in. Like they were set up to knock down. But this was a real long bridge we went over, and it just fit. You just take your time. And when we get to the field, just past here, we went to a field, and there was a fence all the way around it. And then there was a ditch, and then there was a fence coming out over the laneway, and then along the side of the road, because they would move a lot of cattle through there. And we go to get in the field, and we've got the header carts 20 miles away, lift the head all the way up, and we're going to take that whole fence down because it's too high. And we got 2 combines to get in. So we jumped I think I got pictures in the book, but we jumped over the fence, and there's all rocks around the culvert. We threw all the rocks we could up. We started piling the rocks in front of the combine tires, and we drove the combine up on rocks, got above the fence post that high, and that fence was about from here to that door long. So we had to keep moving rock. There's 2 guys on each side of the combine. They're moving rocks from the back to the front. And we had to do it to get out too, because the header cart was gone, eh? So yeah, you got to improvise for some stuff. And I guess I forgot when we were in Texas, I didn't drive much. I never really ran a combine in the field. I didn't even drive the combine from the triangle to the field. The foreman drove it. I took his pickup. He got the head hooked on, and we started combining. He's like, "Okay, you start." We did one round around the field. He's like, "Okay, you know what you're doing. See ya." And I did, 11,000 acres. Yeah, I never drove, and that's what they do. Nobody knows what they're doing, and they trust you. Just get in the combine and go. This was Yak Henniger. You ever hear of him, Virgil? Yak Henniger from Glenwood?
No.
In Alberta? No. At that time, he was the largest farmer in Canada. 100,000 acres. He farmed most of the Blood Indian Reserve. And he had, I think there's 14 John, 14?
He got up to 140,000.
He did.
Yeah.
So these are all his combines, and he was a German immigrant, and he had.
Yes, now I heard about it.
Okay, he was a real funny guy, and he had all German exchange students running these combines, and then they did the wheat, and then there was Braydan harvesting, and I think they were out of the States, like one of the Dakotas, and they did all his barley, and then we did all his, we windrowed, whatever wheat he wanted windrowed for straw, we did it, and we did all his mustard. Because he didn't want his guys screwing up the specialty stuff. So we did the windrowing and the mustard, and they did all the direct cut wheat. And he had a good, if there was, let's say, something happened where he had to, like the clean grain elevator plugged up and there's a pile of wheat on the ground, or a truck spilt a little bit, or if something happened, he had buckets and a shovel in the back of his pickup, and he could sniff it out, and he would bring it home. He'd put it in a bucket. It could have been a quarter of a 5-gallon pail, and he would put that in his truck, and he'd take it back to the home yard, dump it in a Quonset hut in the corner, and he had a guy working for him, and I forget the guy's name, but he was a funny little dude, like really weird dude, and he had a little sifter, and the wheat would go through, and the junk would stay in, eh? And that guy had a pile of wheat in that Quonset like this, and, like it would fill this corner up, and that guy used that little pie tin sifter, and he sifted that whole pile to get all the rocks and everything out of it, and then they put it in their bin. But 100,000 acres, you got a lot of 5-gallon pails of little spill. That's a lot of little spills, and it adds up. And that guy would stand there all just, then he'd look out the door at you, like he'd look, see who's there, and then he'd go back to sifting the wheat. So that's what he did, and he cleaned up around there. But when the combines are rolling, his main job was in that Quonset sifting the wheat. Here's my combine in Alberta. And I'm pretty sure right there, that's Old Chief. You ever heard of Old Chief Mountain in Alberta? Looks like an old Indian chief laying down. I think that's him right there. There's a UFA fuel truck. So yeah, they'd call, or we'd call them, hey, this is where we're combine. Okay, we'll send the trucks wherever we'd meet. Fuel up. There's nobody who's ever on them roads. So they just, pull up right there, they'd fuel us up, and we keep going. There we are windrowing, and no GPS on them combines, and that's how we ended the field. Got pretty lucky there. That happened a couple times. It was like, no way, big field like that, and we end up with that straight. See, we have see these white jugs on there. We had a couple fires, so we just had those full. We just grabbed whatever jugs we could and kept them with us. And then the farmer eventually brought us his big Steiger and a disc, and then that was our fire control until the fire trucks could get there. But we'd have it where dust would be. It was so dry, and the dust would fall off. There'd be something around the turbo, and the dust would fall on the back axle, light the chaff on fire, and then you move the combine. It falls down, drips through the field. Next thing you know, field's on fire. And I had it. There's a pulley right behind there for the discharge beater. There's a whole bunch of straw behind it, and it caught fire. And all of a sudden I had the unloading auger was back, and all of a sudden they're on the radio. Mitch, shut your auger off. Why is your auger running? I said, my auger's not running. Like, what's wrong? Well, you got wheat coming out. And I looked in my mirror and I swung the auger out. Auger's just unloading wheat. So I shut the key. I just turned the key off, right? I never even stopped. I just shut the key off, jumped out, grabbed the fire extinguisher, opened the hood, opened the side. Side of the combine's on fire. There's the main wiring harness that goes from the engine to the cab is right there. Melted that whole thing together. I was 3 hours with my jackknife and a roll of electrical tape, and I cut every wire apart and fixed it all with electrical tape. And every buzzer was going off in that combine for 3 hours until it figured itself out that everything was okay, and then it started working again. But I ran the rest of the season like that.
Wow.
But if I would have let it go a bit more, that whole thing would have burnt up, or would have needed a new wiring harness. But you just look, and it's just strand of wires like that with no coating on them. I cut them all apart. Yeah. And all that dark sky, that's all smoke. Montana had a bunch of wildfires going on. That's all smoke. Nice sunset. I liked everywhere we went, but Alberta was probably one of my favorites. Not because it was Canada, but it's just real nice scenery and nice spot to be.
So as a young guy, how did you think of taking all these pictures?
Well, I've always liked photography, I guess, and I don't know. It was something I always wanted to do, and I wanted to make sure I had something to show people. Yeah, so I think I've got 3,000 pictures. Like I had a digital camera and all these cards, and I think I have 3,000 pictures. But when we were in Alberta, we got to go touring. We went to Waterton Park. Like anybody been to Waterton? I know Herb has. Like that's probably the nicest place in the world is Waterton Park. Like it's beautiful there. And they got this Cameron Lake, and I was gonna look up how long it is, but we went to Cameron Lake, and you drive all through the mountains, and you get up there, and here's this real big lake, and you look on the other side, and that's Glacier National Park in Montana. So the other side is Montana. We thought it'd be a good idea for a combine crew to go canoeing, but never went canoeing before. So we rent a canoe, and they give you a life jacket and a Ziploc bag to put your phone in and your camera. So we start canoeing. It's like, oh, we kind of head up the middle, eh? Stupid thing to do. We look back, it's like, hey guys, we're like a long ways away from where we took off, eh? Like, and I don't know how, it could be 10 miles across this lake, and there's like mountains on the other side. So you don't know how big it is. And then the wind picked up, and the wind was blowing from the north to the south, and we had to go north. We paddled like crazy, and we got to the edge, and we brought the rocks all the way back. We were an hour and a half late from getting our rental back. They're like, good thing you guys showed up. We were just about ready to call search and rescue to come and find you. We had to go through the rocks. It was so windy with canoes. We had to go in the rocks with the paddle. It was a little bit scary. These are, they call these alkali patches. And it was real, would that be real high pH or real low? I forget. But, like, nothing would grow there. And these are just random patches all over. And they could be in a field, like you'd be in a field and you'd see a little triangle. And, oh, why the heck wouldn't they plant there? There's nothing there. Well, you'll see what happens, but there's one spot, I'm on a side hill, and there's a real little one. It was about this big, and it was leaking a little bit of water. And I drove in, it was literally this big, and I drove over with the combine, and my combine slid down the hill. Did you have those in Alberta?
We went there full of like everything.
Is that the right name for it?
Yes.
Okay. So there's Alberta. Just keep the head on and go where you gotta go. There's a big bud that Kenninger had. He had like 10 big flexi-coil air seeders, 10 Steigers. He had 10 of everything. 10 Steigers. Yeah. And that we actually saw that thing working. That was that's a like some kind of hoe, like a Noble plow or a hoe or something. A sweep hoe, or it's for getting weeds and stuff. We saw it actually working. It's like 60 feet wide or 80 feet wide. Now I got the big Canadian. I got a bigger flagpole, and I can put the big Canadian flag on there. Then I was running grain cart in Kansas for a bit, so I hung it on the back of the grain cart. I'm saying grain cart because we might be live here, and people in the Nebraska and Michigan, they're like, grain, yeah, if I say grain buggy, they're going to really laugh at me, because that's what we call it here, is a grain buggy. There's a camper we found in Alberta. They had it was a gooseneck, and then they put a hitch on it here to hook on the pickup. It's hard to see, but I call it the Dale Clark Redneck Special. Because Dale would really like something like that, and he did. I showed him. He laughed pretty good. That's this guy here. That's Don Gilbert, and that's Chris Bonter, and they're from Michigan. They're on the crew with me on the S&L crew. They're the two truck drivers. Those alkali patches I was talking about, you can see the planter, the drill went this way and this way. It didn't go here. I thought, well, it looks dry, no big deal. Yeah, it was a big deal. We had to go get a tow rope from 20 miles away to pull it out. That's just what it does. It's just real heavy clay and just stays wet all the time.
Sometimes there's a strain coming out. Just
Yeah, yeah.
I feel I was a custom sprayer, and I think when my wife, we were dating the first time I want to show her my field.
Yeah.
I'm wearing, got stuck.
Well, that's not that bad, is it? Stuck on the first date?
I walked back to the shed and called a tractor and said, "Go."
Yeah.
That was the first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it makes for good stories, so.
Yeah.
This is when we were back in Nebraska. There's a couple of brothers, the German brothers. They're cattle farmers in Nebraska, and they had a bunch of irrigated corn. So, but it's real sandy around there, and yeah, we'd go up a hill and it would just spin out in the sand hills. And then you just back up and take another stab at it and try and get up. That's all you can do. It was fairly steep too. This is a video, and that's me. I was standing at the bottom looking up. That's how steep it is. Like it was real steep in a couple spots, and it would just make it over some spots. Yeah, it was a video. I don't know. I can't get the play on here, but
I did manure spreading custom for feedlots.
yeah,
With a 15-ton burning spreader in the 7420.
yeah,
I was power hopping. I was scared.
yeah.
I don't want to go back. I could not go like this. Finally, I went really slow down. I was.
Yeah, we had to do that a couple times too.
It
Yeah.
scared me.
And this, this corn is irrigated with center pivots. So there's a pivot track. So you kind of go, you go slow through it, but it just bottomed out on the in front of the axle there and on the feeder house. So yeah, we did pull out of there, get pulled out of there too. It just, you just would spin. It's sandy. Well, you can kind of see right there how sandy it was. Everybody really likes this one.
I like it.
Do you? So we got these Texas duals. Hey Jeremy, did you run those Texas duals?
No, I saw the spacer sitting in the barn, but we never knew.
Okay, so
We've had duals though.
yeah. So there'd be a spacer, so you take all the, I think, if I remember right, you take all the lug nuts off at 2, put the spacer on, lug nuts on, and then bolt this. That was like the tire really didn't touch the ground unless you got into mud, and then once you got low enough, then the dual would carry. And we got into some spots when we were in Kansas doing corn, and the washouts were so bad, because you'd get a pivot track from the center, from the irrigation, and then they had a big rainstorm, and the washouts were so bad you couldn't get away from them, and there was sometimes you'd be driving on the duals only, and the big tires are not touching, and that was hard on them final drives. But there was no other way that we could do it, like combine the corn, and that's what we had to do, and I'm pretty sure that's why there was catastrophic failure with that final drive. So I was just combining beans, and all of a sudden I felt the combine go down, and I kind of looked out like that, and I could see the yellow rim. I was like, oh, this is not good. So, we just had to, ended up getting the head unhooked off of it, and there you can see where the final drive the axle broke inside, and broke that housing. Smashed the shields here. They ended up, I think Deere put a new gull wing on it when they traded it in, or maybe we put one on, I forget, but it smashed the gull wing. But same thing, you got to go 40 miles away to get the loader tractor to get the tires out of the way and all that good stuff, and then we got to get it jacked up. Then we need parts, but when they would combine in the fall, they would park 2 combines and put another grain cart and another truck on the road for corn. So they had combines sitting there, and I don't think Deere had a final drive they could get right away. And we were 4 hours. We were in Tribune, Kansas, and we were might be a couple hours from Tribune or whatever. But they could jack one of the combines up at the shop. Hey, what are you guys doing? And they brought us another guy from the crew brought us another final drive. But yeah, we had to fix it out in the field. So that's where we could jack it from, right there. There's blocks approximately 6 feet underground. That's how light that ground was. And we just kept getting any piece of wood we could find, and we kept it took us 4 hours to jack it up. And it just, whatever we put there, maybe if we would have had something bigger underneath, a piece of steel, it might have been okay, but we didn't. We worked with what we had, and they're probably still pulling them blocks up. There's about 6 feet of blocks underneath there. We just kept jacking it up, or jacking it down, I guess. The blocks just kept going down, and finally we hit subsoil, and it started lifting the combine up. And it was about 40-mile-an-hour winds that day, so we were laying under there, and our faces were so burnt from the sand. Yeah, we're laying on the ground for 4 hours, putting blocks in and jacking it up. So it rained a lot, so we had time that we could go have some fun, and they couldn't. The first part of the crew, when they got down to Texas, they couldn't combine right away, so they go to the hardware store and they make potato guns. So then we had like 9,000 acre spread this farmer had. We could go wherever, and there's antelope running around. We found one that had a bum leg, and we could get it between 2 pickups and shoot a potato gun at it. So that's what we did. Here they had a battery charger thing to hook up to the potato gun to charge it to make her go. Yeah, we just get 4 or 5 guys in the back of a pickup and 2 potato guns and shoot at this antelope, and finally it took off. Here we are. There he is trying her out there. This was Chris. He absolutely despised smoking or chewing tobacco, and he would fall asleep anywhere, and he would sleep so good that we could do just about anything, so we put a smoke in his mouth. He had it one time, he wanted to drive a combine, and we had to move it. So, okay, yeah, you move it. And in Kansas, you either got your main roads, north, south, east, west. Sometimes there's roads in between the fields you can take, and they're kind of rough. While somebody was chewing tobacco, and they had their cup in the cup holder, he hit a bump and that seat went all the way up and that cup come out right on his lap. He comes out so mad, and he ripped his pants off, and he drove the rest of the day in his underwear, and he had his pants tied to the ladder. But it was pretty funny. So we at the end of harvest, we got to go on actually Chris, the guy in the previous picture, he wanted to go look at working at a coal mine in Wyoming. So he had a crotch rocket motorbike, and it was in November, and he was going to drive it up into Wyoming to this coal mine to go look at it, to go work there. So Scott says, well, it's a little bit cold. Why don't you guys I'll give you the couple extra days off before we bring all the equipment back to the dealer. Just take the Suburban and go for a 4-day vacation. Okay, so we all went up to the coal mine, and there's pictures in that book, but it's the Thunder Basin coal mine. It's the world's largest open pit coal mine. They got extension cords that are hundreds of feet long, this big around. They use a payloader to move them, and that's how they power all their coal excavators and stuff. They got big dozers there. It's 2 12-hour shifts to change a cutting edge on a dozer blade. These are the biggest equipment in the world there, and we got to go tour that. It was pretty cool. So we go and then we're going through Wyoming, and this is Hewlett, Wyoming. This is a town that's about 300 people, and they got a Best Western that holds more than that. But there's there's a lot of hunting that goes on there. People from all over America go to Hewlett, Wyoming to go hunt deer. When we pull up, and there was some more trucks there with deer, and we pull up, and there's a big pool of blood on the road. And then it's going up the laneway right to this Best Western. It's like, oh, are we going to stay here? And yeah, all it was everybody had their deer all field dressed in the back of their trucks, and they just let the blood drip out, and it was all over. And you know what? Nobody cared. That's how everybody's pickup was like that. And we were driving down the road going into Hewlett, and there's a sign right in the middle of the road. It said 4-H taco dinner, $10. We went there and ate supper with the locals. It was a great time. Then we went to Deadwood Mountain. Wild Bill and Calamity Jane went there, looked around. This was Greensburg, Kansas. Yeah, what's it look like to you guys?
Junkyard.
Tornado.
Oh.
The town was a mile wide. So was the mile long, mile wide, and so was the tornado. Took the whole thing. There's I don't know if it's, can't really see it on there. This was in, I forget, this was a few months after, and there was some stuff like, that was a gas station that was either not affected or they rebuilt it. From what I remember, the John Deere dealer was fully rebuilt and fully stocked, and that was about it. Oops. But yeah, there was still stuff stuck in trees all over, but the whole town, it took the whole town. The tornado was a F5, I think it was, like a big one, and it just took the whole town. Here we're in Tribune, there's the sheriff, and that's me right there. We would, if we were on with the whole crew together, there was a crew of ladies and girls that would do all the cooking for us. So we had to do our own breakfast in the trailer in the morning. At lunchtime, they would bring the Suburban, and everybody got a bag lunch. Big paper bag, and there'd be a soup and sandwich and snacks and drink, whatever we needed for lunch. Supper time, they would bring full meal. We'd have 2 tables like this full of food. You'd have roast beef or roast chicken or whatever, all the fixings, dessert, everything, full meal. And everybody would park the combines in a nice straight row, of course, and everybody go 10 minutes for supper, get back in and go combine. And we had that every night for supper. We had a full home cooked meal. But when we were doing our own thing with our own little crew, yeah, we had to get our own lunch, and there was a quick stop in Tribune, and they had a sub shop in there. And it was, you know what, it was quick and easy, and the subs weren't that bad, so we went there every day for lunch, and we could have been there for 2 or 3 weeks, and we had just subs every day, get a different one every day. And there's this little Mexican girl in there, and she was making the subs, and she's like, she used a little bit other word, but she says, "Aren't you guys tired of eating this crap yet?" And we're like, "No, not really." And she was real friendly, and she's like, "You know what, if you guys aren't doing nothing on whatever night, my husband and I will have you over, and I'll make you authentic Mexican food." I think she made us enchiladas and something else. And he had just turned, I think he just turned 21, and he was the sheriff in the town. He's like, a couple of years ago, he's like, they were chasing me everywhere, and he says, now I'm the sheriff. And they lived in a little single wide trailer in Tribune, and nothing fancy. And they had us over for supper, and we weren't old enough to buy beer or nothing, but he supplied us with all the beer we wanted and all the enchiladas, and he was into showing 4-H cattle and stuff like that. Levi Adams, I think his name was. And yeah, he was. And then they're like, the guys I was combining with, "Hey, you should put the cuffs on Mitch." Okay, and he actually slammed me on the car like I robbed a quick stop. It wasn't, "Hey, come here, we're gonna do that." He grabbed me and put the cuffs on me and bent me over. Put me on the car. Everybody's in the quick stop looking like, "Oh, what's going on over there?" My buddies are just laughing on the bench. And he was being so serious. He had his knee against me, and arm on me. And I was trying to get up, and he's like, "Stay down." So there's Alberta again. Getting the grain cart moved. We had all our windshield covers to put on so rocks wouldn't take out the windshield. We got tired of taking the duals on and off all the time. So we just started going like that. It was 17.5 feet wide going down the road, so it was a little wide. We never did get caught. We just left them on. So this is in Colorado, Bennett, Colorado. That's the farmer there. Norland Cavender was his name. Super nice guy, and he had, I forget how many acres he had there, but just over, if you look the other way, that's the mountain range, and then over them mountains, that's where Denver was. So you can see big airplanes flying in all the time. We just got into Colorado, and the MTO or DOT was set up. So we had to pull in, of course, and one truck, the tappet broke, so it sounded like the Jake brake was on all the time because the valves weren't opening on one cylinder. So it sounded like the Jake brake was on. So pulled up, and it happened. We're going right into this check. They're like, "Oh, that don't sound good. You got to get that fixed." And they get looking at us while I was driving the service truck. It's got one 500-gallon fuel tank, and apparently you're not allowed to have that. It's got to be 5 100-gallon tanks, not one big one. And then I was Canadian, so I had that against me. So they impounded that truck. And we pulled the headers with that truck. So we had to do a whole bunch of switching around because now we're down a semi, we're down a service truck, and we got wheat to cut in Colorado. So we hook the camper, or we unhooked the camper off the pickup, hooked the headers on those two headers on a 3/4 ton pickup. Way too heavy. And then we unload the combine because this truck's going in the shop. And so we leave the camper and the service truck there at this checkpoint. And we have to come back with a hazmat card saying we're allowed to drive with that much fuel. And I got to drive the combine. I forget, I drove all day, 200 miles. I drove it all day to get to where we had. I drove the combine from the border of Kansas and Colorado all the way up to Bennett where we were going. There's this one sign I passed that said it was last chance. That was the name of the town. I was like, yeah, this is last chance. But that was a long drive on that day. And my phone actually worked in Colorado, so I was on the phone the whole time. Because I could actually call home. That was the only time my phone worked. But then we went and we got up there. And I got there just before dark, so we could cut wheat for 4 hours. So we cut wheat, and then we went back with the pickup. And the DOT, our truck was still sitting there, and the DOT guys were gone. So we stole the truck out of the impound lot they had there and hooked the camper on and headed back to Bennett. And that service truck was so rough riding, the whole camper, everything fell on the inside of that camp. Like all the drawers opened up, everything emptied out. It was such a mess. But yeah, another good story. That's also why we skipped the port of entry going into Wyoming, because who knows, Colorado might have been talking to them and said, "Oh, they stole the service truck out of our lot, and we got tickets for them," but we never heard nothing. There we are, all cutting again, lined up. This is when we were getting ready to haul it back to the dealer. This was in Goodland, Kansas, and we're at the dealer. Yeah, that was my combine. I wasn't usually a truck driver, but I said to the truck driver, I said, "Do you think I can haul my combine to the dealer? I kind of want to close the deal." So he let me drive. I let him combine a little bit in Alberta, so he let me drive the truck to haul the combine back. So I got to do that. That was kind of nice. This is all the tractors back at the home farm. Little 1010. They call that thing Mighty Mite. Just hook her on heads or whatever, tow them around, park them in the barn. 30, if anybody needs to know, that's a 30-20 power shift. That's the old 48. We're in Montana. The Jake, sit on that chair and be quiet, please. Okay? Michael's sitting there. There's another chair there. So the brakes went out of this. So the dealer from Nebraska brought this 84 30 up to Montana Forest to use. And they ended up trading in that 4850 on that. I told them I was gonna hang my suitcase on the back and drive that one home, 4850. Sadly, these two in this barn burnt up. They had a fire. You ever hear what caused that fire?
Something, one of the campers. I believe.
Yeah, one of the campers, and they lost a bunch of stuff in them 2 tractors in the fire. This is the home shop here. Yeah, that's the shop he ran out of for a lot of years, right there. All the bunkhouses would park here. They had all sewer hookups and everything, so everything would be there. This guy here, I had bought. There's this guy. He was on an antique tractor forum online, and this guy's name was Nebraska Cowman was his handle. Howard Raymond is his name. He may even be watching this. He's in Wainfleet, Nebraska. So I bought some tractor parts off of him at one time. So I got looking him up, and he was only an hour away. So I got his phone number and I called him, and yeah, I went to go meet him and had lunch with him. And yeah, it was a pretty nice visit we had. He's a big IH collector. He's got a bunch of old farmhalls. Then on our tour, when we went to that coal mine, we went all over. We went to go see the Mount Rushmore and all that cool stuff. So we got to see some cool things on our free time. This is when we're getting ready to leave. We had supper the one night with Scott and Linda, and we were going to be there a few days because, we were supposed to go process cattle with some of the guys that we had combined for, and we had all this stuff we were going to do for about a week, I guess. We get done supper, and one guy, because I was going to ride back with the guys from Michigan, and then Mom and Dad were going to pick me up in Michigan. So we get done supper, and they said to me, "You got your suitcase packed?" I was like, "No." "Well, we're going to Michigan tonight. It's from here, it's a 17-hour drive." I said, "Tonight?" I said, "We're supposed to be here another week. We got people we're going to see and people we can say bye to and do stuff." "Nope, we're going tonight. Are you coming or not?" And I said, "No, I'm staying." So then the next day, I called Mom and Dad. I was like, "Hey, you want to come to Nebraska and pick me up? Because my suitcase is way too heavy to put on a plane." So they had a couple days, and then they got out there, but they had to do some planning here. But they drove out there and picked me up, which was nice. They got to meet Scott and Linda and see the farm and everything. So that was kind of nice. So then that's kind of the end. I was good. Fast forward 10 years, and I thought, 2017, 10-year anniversary. Maybe I should go back out, go on harvest again, go for a couple weeks or a week. And then one of my buddies messaged me, and it was from Sullivan's Auctioneers, S&L auction. And I thought, oh, what the heck? I was going to go out there. So it kind of saddened me a little bit, actually. I wanted to go out to Kansas, meet them in Kansas, and go combine again. Well, they got to the end of they were going for almost 50 years, and it was time for them to retire. And so they were having an auction. So I thought, well, I'm going to the auction. So I got my buddy Sean, he's sitting over here. Said, "You want to go for a tour?" Yeah. So we went on a tour. So when you go down I-80, that's like my kind of vacation. You get to Moline, and you got John Deere World Headquarters, and you got Harvester Works, and you got John Deere Pavilion, and then you hit Walcott, Iowa. You got the world's largest truck stop and the big truck museum. Then you hit Williamsburg, and you can go to Kinsey, get a tour plan at Kinsey. And then we had a couple locals from here. We're managing a 5,000 head dairy in Beersford, South Dakota. So we went up to South Dakota, which was a little bit longer than we thought. We left Kinsey. We thought we had lots of time. We had a 10-hour drive ahead of us. So then we had to drive that far back down because we had to get to Nebraska the next day. So we had a good tour, didn't we, Sean?
Yeah, it was good.
So we get to Imperial. This is what, when you're driving from Ogallala off of 80, this is kind of what the landscape's like. Lots of cattle around. This is south of Imperial. There's the elevator there. So this is kind of like the main road when you come in, and we just kept driving to get up here. And that's what it's like out there. There's the Frenchman Valley Co-op. They still had piles of grain. This was in March of 2017. So they had a supper. There's a couple guys from Michigan, or one guy anyways, Jeremy, this guy here, Mike Clover. Jeremy, he went with S&L in 2012, and we combined with him, and then he was going out to the sale, so he kind of kept me in the loop, and he's like, oh, we're meeting at Broadway for supper. So these people are a lot of family members. These guys here from Indiana, they combined one of the last couple of years. Some of the guys in the back were on the crew a lot of years ago, and they came for the sale. So yeah, we got there, and then they really didn't see us come in, and then they were talking, and everybody had to go around and introduce themselves, and we were kind of the last ones. I said, yeah, we drove however many miles to get here, but it was a good tour, and they turned around, and they were pretty surprised to see that their Canadian was there. So this is the sale day at the farm. Everything's in S&L fashion, lined up nice and straight, looking nice, all clean. There's the auctioneer trailer. Those the Sullivan group, what a good bunch of guys. Personable, just professional. They did a lot of that's what the Scott and Linda deserved for selling their equipment, was get them guys to do it. They did a top-notch job. There they are. Scott and Linda's in the trailer there, giving a speech before the auction starts. A lot of people there. A lot of harvesters from over the years. A lot of other harvesting crews, like the owners were there to just to kind of say farewell, I guess. There's all the equipment he had for.
How many combines was he running at the end there? Right?
Oh, he had 3 in the sale. Like what'd they have, Jeremy, when you were there?
We were only 3. We had a rental at the beginning of the season, but it was just 3.
Okay, so yeah, 3 combines. They had there's all the duals and everything, and there's these. I think those are the honeybee headers. They're kind of like big Shelburne. Okay, stripper heads. Looks like there's a Mac on there, and there's all the different trailers and header carts and everything. There's all the trucks. To this day, it still is my favorite paint scheme on a truck. It just looks real sharp, and those colors, they started out with Massey Ferguson combines, and that's from the story I heard. Eric can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he picked those colors because silver, black, and red were what the Massey Ferguson combines were, and that's what they said the stripe should be. So, and that was kind of, everybody knew them trucks, whose they were. No matter where they are in the country, they know those were S&L trucks just by the color of stripes and that pattern. I really want to take that first one home too, but it didn't happen. And red pickups and red Suburbans, that was the vehicle, that was the color of choice, with all the chrome on it too. He liked shiny chrome and aluminum. That was their crew pickup, and this was Scott's pickup in their Suburban there. Both them trucks, same farmer bought them. They went to Colorado. Both the day cab feeds. There's kind of a panoramic view of the whole thing. There's kind of an elevator right there. There's a picture in the book. It's called AK Acres Popcorn farmer there in Imperial. And when I got off the crew, I started working at Thompson's in Blenheim here, and there's a brand new Wilson or a Timpty trailer came in with a load of, because they used to process popcorn in Blenheim. And I says, "Where'd you get the popcorn from?" "Oh, long ways away." I said, "Okay. Well, where's your paperwork?" Show me the paperwork. I says, "I know exactly where you came from. You come from 740 Road, Nebraska." He looked at me. He's like, "How do you know?" I says, "Because AK Acres Popcorn is right on the corner. It says AK Acres Popcorn." So yeah, I got to unload a loader from right out of that elevator. All the corn heads. There's all that. That was kind of everybody kind of just stood there and watched. Everything started leaving, and then it was kind of, yeah, that's the end of an era. That's Chris, one that went to Wyoming, and he came back to Michigan for a very little bit, and then he went to Wyoming, and he's still there working in coal mines, hauling, driving truck and stuff. And he ended up getting his pilot's license. So him and another friend of his, that was his friend's plane, and yeah, they flew right into Imperial, right to the airport for the sale. And then I went and picked them up, and when they left, they come and they buzzed us right at the farm. These guys, they were with Scott back in like 2001 or something like that. I believe both of them, they actually came back after Scott's accident to help him out that next year. So this guy is David. I've actually been talking to him the last couple of weeks on Twitter. He's from Florida. He was just in Nebraska at their place last week visiting with them. This guy's name is Seth, and I'm pretty sure he's from Pennsylvania. There's people from, Florida, Pennsylvania. Dairy farmer from Wisconsin that went with him in the late 90s. He got in from milking and at night having supper, reading the farm paper. There's an ad for S&L auction. Got in his pickup and he drove all night to get there. And there's other people from all over the U.S. that had worked for him. So that kind of just tells you the impact that they had on their employees. Like real good people to work for, and like that guy David come from Florida. Flew from Florida to Denver to go to a one-day auction sale for them. So that was kind of cool. And we could talk, there was kind of a whole group of them, and you could pick everybody out of who was working, and we could talk to them like we were best buds forever, eh? Like just talking about harvest stories and everything. So this is a picture of all Scott and Linda and some of their family, and all the people on this side here. Those are all crew members that showed up from crews over the years. So that was it was a real cool experience to go there for that. So there's Scott and Linda there. Me. There. That's the end of the slideshow for pictures. So I got a little. This is their auction thing here, and there's just an insert here. I'll read from it, just what they put in there for all their years. It gives you a bit of history. Scott started his business in 1968 with a 1958 Massey Harris Model 92 combine. 1 year later, he bought a new Massey 410 combine, a 57 GMC grain truck, and a 57 Chevy pickup. He married Linda in 73. 10 years later, in 83, the business became S&L Farms. Through the early years, Scott updated many different Massey combines, but in 79, he bought his first John Deere, a John Deere 7720. From then on, he ran nothing but John Deere combines. By 85, S&L Farms was running 10 and 12 combines and harvesting from Texas to Canada. Many changes took place during the 49 years of business, from tractors and grain carts to semi-tractors with trailers instead of 10-wheelers. Cab, air, and radio was considered luxury before today's world of push buttons and auto steer. Scott remembers when you used to load your combine in the bed of your truck before equipment trailers were around. In 2001, Scott had a life-changing pickup accident that resulted in immobility and eyesight issues. Scott endured a hospital stay of 6.5 months. However, this was the only time he had ever been away from the harvest. Life on harvest was a grand experience and a lifestyle that gave him excitement every morning. no other way of life would have given him such satisfaction and accomplishment. Scott and Linda have 4 children, 4 grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild. Foremost in their lives is having Christ as their personal Savior. He is the center of their life and business. To everyone who has been part of a 49-year journey, whether as an employee, a friend, or customer on the harvest, Scott and Linda would like to say thank you and invite everyone to come celebrate the end of a chapter in Imperial on March 1st, 2017. So that gives you a little rundown of the history of their harvesting business. So that's about all I got. There is some books, more pictures here if you want to look. There's two of the same books you can look at. Some auction flyers. If you got any questions, let me know.
The year you were out there, Mitch, have you had 3 machines going? Like just with that crew?
Well, we had 2 S&L combines and then 5.
How many acres would that crew have covered in that year?
I wrote down some records here. So this was my combine total off the old brown box.
Yeah.
Okay. Monday, Texas, 1,095 acres. So pretty much all these numbers times it by 7. Okay.
Yeah.
So 1,095 acres in Monday, Texas. Oklahoma, El Dorado, 606 acres. Perryton, Texas, 304. Tribune, 1,954. Bennett, Colorado, 878. Hardin, Montana, 1837. Miles City, 903. Alberta, 1,886. And that was just my combine. That's from my records. Plus, there's also corn and soybean acres where I kind of quit recording because I don't know, I must have got tired. So there is more acres on that, but I did around 11,000 myself, times that by 7 combines. And then, yeah, I drove it had miles on it too, so I drove the combine 2,500 miles. 750 hours on it. Like that's what I put on.
Hey Mitch, I don't know if I missed this or not, but
Probably did.
Did he own? I might have. I had the questions the whole presentation, so I waited to the end. But did he own 3 combines and lease the rest, or how did he? Did he own all these?
Well, as far as I know, everything was owned.
He owned it all.
He like when I went, he had 2, and then the other guy had the 5. But yeah, everything was owned.
Did he? The next question. Did he plan or do anything or spray or anything, or just combine?
Just combine.
That's it.
Yeah.
And these people from Alberta, they would pay for him to come in and do this work.
Yeah. Yeah.
From
all the different states, like labor was a problem trying to get people to run equipment.
I guess so.
And when they were doing it, if I remember right, the price was like they went by 3s, so I think the price was like 3/16 an acre. So $16 an acre to combine it, 16 cents per bushel hauled, and 16 cents premium per bushel hauled if it went over 40 bushel an acre. So if it was a poor crop, they'd only pay 16 cents a bushel to get it hauled to the elevator. If it was a real good crop, they'd pay double that.
I won't ask you what they paid you.
I came home with around, I think I had 13,500.
Geez, that's not
That's
bad.
like over the whole time. I come home with about 12 of it,
That's
or
pretty good.
11, something like that.
Canadian or American?
American.
Real money.
American. Yeah. Well, at that time it was par. Right? So,
How
yeah.
long was the trip in total then?
Oh, I left May the 7th, and I got home about the same time in November, like middle of November.
Yeah.
When you went from place to place, you just drove in a pickup with your buddies, or they didn't fly you nowhere like that?
Oh no, we
You drove everywhere.
We had to drive all the trucks and the equipment.
Yeah.
Like, we had to haul everything. Sometimes 2 trips back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah. So
There's a lot of.
somebody had to drive the pickup, hauling the camper, and yeah, we'd drive all the trucks and whatever, or drive the combine or the tractor if we had to, right? So yeah. Any other questions?
I saw you took, was it Linda, were they also going working after retirement for a couple of weeks for other farms, custom farms or not? I
What was the question?
Did after they retired, did they work for somebody else?
And I saw that.
There was, if I'm right, there was somebody who, a young guy from, I forget where he was from, but he had bought a couple combines and started a new crew. And I think he might have took over some of their customers. And I think they went along just to see how it was going, and
I think they drove up there with a pickup truck and.
yeah, it could be, yeah, okay, yeah, but like it's, yeah, doing it for 50 years, you don't just quit it like that, eh? So, but yeah, it's one of them things, either you like it or hate it. I ended up loving it, and I think about it every day, every single day. There's always something comes up. Oh, we did this on harvest, or I did that, and that was, what, 17, 18 years ago? And it's every day, there's something comes up where you think about it. And there's always somebody you're talking to, like with all this social media and all that stuff nowadays, yeah, you can talk to, I was talking to Nebraska last night. Scotland and his son messaged me, hey, can I see this thing somehow? Yeah, I can show mom and dad. He's like, I guess we'll figure something out. But yeah, I was talking to him last night just on social media, so you can keep up with most. There's some I haven't talked to since we left, but it's hard to keep up with that many people.
Scott had his pilot's license.
Yeah. Yeah.
When they were big, they split the crew and he'd fly between them.
Yeah, he did fly. Scott did have his pilot's license, and he would fly. And yeah, I heard they'd be combining, and all of a sudden you get wheels on top of the cab of the combine, and you better not have been messing around because he was watching. He'd just fly and buzz the crew. Yeah.
Did you ever have to combine one way? Like, when the wheat lays down and stuff and you gotta come from the other way? It'd be a hell of a section to go back to the end of the field and come back. What was the slowest you ever combined that 4 or 5 months you were there?
Like
Did you ever have a bad field? You were like
point one.
You were going 0.1 miles an hour.
The wheat was this high.
That'd have been long.
We had to have the reels all the way up, and the guy wanted all the straw, so we had to head all the way down and the reels all the way up just to get it in. And the combine would go too fast at 0.1 mile an hour. We had to put all that through the combine. And there's a windrow like this.
Okay.
That wheat.
Yeah.
And he still had to only pay $16 an acre.
I think so. I don't know. I didn't get too much into that part of it, but that's kind of what the prices were. But it wasn't a very big piece, but he was making a bunker silo for his cattle, and he wanted all the straw for the bales to build a bunker.
That's something.
Where was it?
Tribune, Kansas.
What caused that?
Lots of cattle manure, I think, because it was right by his cattle operation.
I'm surprised that got that wrong.
Yeah, I've never seen it in my whole life. It was that high, and like when I was sitting in the combine, you're pretty much looking at the top of it. But yeah.
Where was the best wheat?
The best wheat?
Alberta.
Kansas was pretty good. Like a lot of it was spring wheat. Like we didn't do much winter wheat. A lot of it was spring wheat. So, and it was a real good year. It was a real good year for it. So we did some 25, 30 bushel wheat, and we did some 50 bushel wheat, and even 60 bushel. I think that real tall stuff, it was like 80 or something like that. The straw was good and the grain was good. So, yeah, it was, I think average it would probably be in between 40 and 50 bushel. But every spot kind of had its good and bad, but everybody seemed happy with the yield they were getting, so, yeah.
Your way back down from Alberta, did you do different crops there? How, once you were in an area, you did at farms, like all the crops for the farm?
Yeah, sometimes we would come back down and stop at farms that we were at before, or sometimes it'd be a new person, or like sometimes they would just get a call. Hey, can you combine this? Oh, sure, let's do it on the way by. So, but we did all wheat up in Alberta and some mustard, and then coming back down, there's a guy in Montana had some safflower, and that's like that white seed in the bird feed.
Yeah.
And it's about this tall, and it's nice and golden, and it's thorns from top to bottom. You plug your feeder house with that stuff, it's awful.
So it wasn't every time that you would harvest all the crops for a farm, like a different crew would come by and do like a different crop or.
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah, it all depends how it fit in the schedule, but you had to keep on top of everything, right? Like, if this guy had wheat ready, and then you get here, oh, it's not done, or not ready, well, then this guy's ready. You gotta keep moving. Or sometimes you just leave a couple guys there and do that, and, I don't know, they figured out all that logistics stuff, but, yeah. It all depends what was ready, when, and, yeah. But we'd go back down into Kansas and we did soybeans and corn. There wasn't too much soybeans grown there at that time. So, yeah.
Would you let your kid go?
Oh yeah. I think every
Probably go with them.
yeah. I think every there's been a lot of young guys that I've told that you should go do it. And not to disrespect anybody, but my dad, I said, tell your dad to go pound salt. I said, he'll find somebody to run a combine, or he'll find somebody to run buggy, or drive truck. I said, you're 18 now? I said, go do it. I said, tell your dad to go screw off. That's what I told him. And some of them did, and some of them didn't. And the ones who didn't, they regretted it every day. Every time I see them, you should have done that, or I should have done that. You told me to tell my dad to pound salt. I said, yeah, I did. But some of them didn't. But yeah, there's been quite a few people that I've told them go do it. And there's a lot of crews out there, and some crews, yeah, you got to. Some of them aren't probably the nicest to work with. I like Jeremy Donater, who's here. He went and worked for S&L, and we were done ag school, right? So 2012.
Yep, I left 2 weeks after exams.
Yeah, and then another guy just outside of Blenheim here, he worked for S&L as well. Other guys have gone to other crews and they get back and they're like, yeah, that guy's a total moron to work for. So you do got to watch it a little bit with who you get in with, I guess. But it's like that in any business, though. You got the good ones and the bad ones, right? And as far as I'm concerned, S&L was probably one of the best ones out there. But they're very well respected amongst the harvesters too. There were so many harvesters showed up at that auction, and that was like the 07 when I went. We got down into Texas to the campground, and all these people come out of nowhere. All these harvesters from all the other campers. It was all the owners of the harvesters coming to their camper because they knew they were on the road. And there was a lineup to go in there and see them. Like, they were very well respected in the custom harvesting world. So, yeah, they left quite a legacy just with how professional they were with everything and how they treated people. And there wasn't an auto store, like auto parts store or a restaurant in the Midwest Harvest Run that they didn't have an account at and they didn't know them. You'd walk into a store with an S&L shirt on. Oh, how's Scott and Linda doing? Say hi to them for me. Hey, I need this. Yep, no problem. We had a fuel issue in Tribune where they got to the bottom of the fuel tank and it was sucking dirt. So everybody had plug fuel filters. You go to a John Deere dealer, you think you can find fuel filters anywhere? S&L always had fuel filters from the John Deere dealer. Always. So what's that tell you? Guys would go in there, sorry, no fuel filters. S&L would go in there. But they treated everybody with respect, treated them good for a lot of years, and they took care of them. And it was like that. It would go to a restaurant. A lot of places want to shut their doors when they saw the Wheaties coming. That's what they call the combiners, the Wheaties. And they could get a bad name. And we'd go to a restaurant. Oh, we get the best service ever, no matter where we went. So, yeah.
Mitch, what about the one crew out of Alberta? I can't remember the name. You know, the one that.
Walters, yeah.
What kind of reputation they have?
They're a little bit, I think a little bit rough. A lot of guys work for them, but
they were rough on iron.
Yeah, like we were in Tribune, and they would split the B trains down there to haul, while the one guy left the field 9 miles away, and he didn't release the brakes on the trailer. He drove 9 miles to the quick stop with the trailer brakes on, and then he parked it. Then all of a sudden you're sitting there, and all of a sudden, boom, boom, every single tire blew up when it was sitting on it stopped on the hot asphalt. It blew 12 tires up. rolling trucks. I heard they rolled trucks, but you know what? I'm not talking bad about them, but just from some of the stuff you see, and like it was guaranteed every harvest stop there'd be, oh, this crew did that. We had mess ups. We had stuff happen too, but there definitely some crews, they had more than others. Rolling trucks on curves, where everybody's looking for help. They'd hire whoever, and who knows what they're on, and rolling trucks or whatever. But everybody had their problems, so you can't bad talk any of them. But yeah, you gotta watch it a little bit, I guess. But there is some, follow a few crews. There's some good ones out there that I would probably go with if I was going again. Any other questions, or I'll be around to talk afterwards. There's books and pictures to look at, but yeah, I guess meeting's adjourned. Oh, there's coffee back there. Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, there's coffee and snacks. We got some, I think, some cold beverages too if you want one. So yeah, stick around if you can.
My phone when I'm gonna die. 31%.
Pretty good, yeah.